Welcome back, and back with us today on the other side of those emergency hearings concerning the Alien Enemies Act, the deportations that we've been talking about, is Lee Gelernt, Deputy Director of the ACLU's Immigrants' Rights Project. And Lee, we spoke to you on Monday as you were literally boarding a flight to an emergency hearing regarding this case. Your 5 plaintiffs are still in U.S. custody. I understand they fear they could be deported next. Where do things stand for them?
So right now, the court has ordered them not to be removed, but the government is taking the position that the judge's order exceeds his authority. And so they immediately appeal to the Court of Appeals in the D.C. Circuit, and they're asking the D.C. Circuit to vacate his injunction. And what they're basically saying to the Court of Appeals is, we can do it whatever we want with the Alien Enemies Act. You cannot review it. The courts don't have power to review it. And even if you did, this is fine to use a wartime authority in peacetime. So any minute the Court of Appeals could rule on whether to vacate the district court's order and allow proceedings to move on, which would mean our plaintiffs would be in imminent risk of being sent to that Salvadoran prison. I think most people now have seen the video of the men landing in El Salvador. These individuals are in real trouble if they're not brought back or any other individuals are sent.
I don't know if you heard our last conversation, but our Julia Ainsley reported out how NBC News spoke with 3 families of people who were already deported to El Salvador, right. And they insist they were wrongfully identified, saying they have no criminal backgrounds, they were not gang affiliated. When we took this to the administration, a DHS spokesperson declined to give any criminal records or details, but did send this statement, quote, "We are confident in DHS intelligence assessments on these gang affiliations and criminality. This administration is not going to ignore the rule of law." How do you respond to that?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked me about that. Our threshold position is the Alien Enemies Act is a wartime authority that cannot be used in peacetime against a gang as opposed to a foreign nation. But beyond that, at a minimum, these individuals have to be given due process to show they are not gang members and don't even fall within the terms of the proclamation. They were given 0 due process to show that, much less have a lawyer to help them. And what I would say is we're going to see a lot of reporting probably showing who these individuals are. And I would caution people to accept at face value the Trump administration's conclusion that all these individuals are very serious, dangerous gang members. We just saw this play out with Guantanamo. They sent hundreds of Venezuelans to Guantanamo saying these were the worst of the worst people. They went down to Guantanamo to do photo ops. It turns out even the government conceded that many of those individuals were low-level criminals or had no criminal violations at all except immigration violations. And so I think there's been a pattern of the administration overstating the danger of who they're detaining. So I would really caution people to wait. I mean, obviously, these individuals were sent there in secret, so we are scrambling to find out who these individuals are, partly through families in Venezuela who may have seen the video. But there has to be some due process to see. I mean, otherwise the government could just send anybody there and say they're all gang members.
In an ACLU filing, you talk about the staggering implications of any president having unreviewable powers to send anyone to a foreign prison with no limit on how long they might remain there. Is there any mechanism to bring these migrants back if they have legitimate asylum claims?
So if the court's order was violated, if the judge determines that his order was violated, we will certainly be asking the judge to direct the United States to bring these individuals back. You know, the U.S. will probably say, well, we can't do that. They're in a Salvadoran prison. But I think there's no question that the Salvadorans are holding these individuals just for the U.S. And so there's no question in my mind that the U.S. can bring them back. And so we will ask the judge to bring these individuals back. I don't know how much longer they can be safe in the Salvadoran prison. And if they have violated the court's order, we think it's perfectly within the judge's authority to order them to be brought back.